to improve, and if there's policies that we need to implement at the state level, either through the education department, or if we need to go to the legislature to seek reforms, we won't hesitate to do so. But I know that there was a lot of relief when we did progress monitoring, because I think people had grown frustrated with the end of year high stakes test. But there was also concern by some, well, is this actually going to measure? Are we still going to have high standards? And I think the results thus far have proven that it is accurately measuring, and it is allowing these students to approve throughout the school year. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved in this transition over the last few years. I know a lot of people were happy to see a transition, but it also did require additional work. And so I think parents and students and teachers, by and large, are happy with the current approach, and we want to keep building off that success. So thanks, everyone. It's a great announcement, great data to be getting in. And I want to start bringing up some folks to be able to speak. So we'll start with Stassi, and then we'll go to the Duval.
Well, good afternoon. I'm humbled and honored to be here joining you, Governor DeSantis, with this wonderful announcement. For those who don't know me, my name is Anastasios Kamoutsas. Everybody calls me Stassi for short. And recently I was fortunate to be selected by our State Board of Education to be Florida's next Commissioner of Education. I look forward to hitting the ground running next week at our Teacher of the Year celebration, where we will celebrate the high-quality educators here in Florida. Today's announcement is a direct reflection of their efforts, as well as the hard work of our students and our parents. I also want to thank those who are statewide leading these efforts in our State Board of Education. Today we have with us Esther Bird, Kelly Garcia, and Ben Gibson, who serve on our State Board of Education. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the staff at the Department of Education, who works behind the scenes day in and day out to make sure that this data is delivered in real time. Juan Copa, Paul Burns, and Steve Concar, thank you all for your efforts. I also see in the crowd today Superintendent Bernier. Thank you so much for hosting us, my friend, and several school board members, some of which were recently elected. Congratulations, as well as congratulations, yes. As well as some folks who have worked behind the scenes with me for years, April Carney, Charlotte Joyce, now Chair. Congratulations, it's good to see you. Together, thanks to the bold vision of Governor DeSantis, students are receiving an education in an effective learning environment, and the results speak for themselves. Florida students are benefiting from Governor DeSantis' policies. There's no questions about it. In 2022, when the governor signed the bill to establish progress monitoring, we put Florida students on a better pathway to success. With real-time data throughout the year, teachers and parents are able to provide necessary interventions for their students before the end of the school year. This change has been monumental in ensuring that our students have every opportunity to succeed. And the data doesn't lie. The governor gave you the high-level data, but I want to speak about specific groups, like students with disabilities, who increased performance by 4 percentage points over the last year in both English language arts and mathematics, or Hispanic students who increased performance by 3 percentage points over the last year in English language arts and 4 points in mathematics. African American students increased performance by 5 percentage points in both English language arts and mathematics. And students from economically disadvantaged families increased performance by 3 percentage points in both English language arts and mathematics. You are talking about hundreds of thousands of students that are benefiting from these policies that this governor has championed. I also have to give credit to Commissioner Manny Diaz, who was a senator at the time when he championed this legislation. Thank you, Commissioner, for all that you've done over the past 6.5 years for education. Florida students are reaping the benefits of our first-in-the-nation approach to testing, because it goes beyond just measurement, student performance at the end of the year. And student success continues to increase on our end-of-the-course exams, as the governor highlighted, but I want to talk about specifically the emphasis on civics and U.S. history, where our students are now at 70% on grade level when it comes to these subject areas. This might be one of the most important subjects we can teach to our students as they grow into adults, and Governor DeSantis has been unrivaled in his support for civics education. Now, school grades. Student assessment is not the only thing we measure in Florida, and it's not the only area in which we're improving. Florida schools are improving across the board, and this is a direct result of the governor's innovative policies and his mandate to school board members and superintendents across the state to bring education back to the basics and focus on student success. Indoctrination, whether it's critical race theory or sexually explicit materials, has no place in Florida schools. This governor has also led a revolution when it comes to school choice. The number of students attending a charter school is now at over 400,000. In 2025, nearly 70% of students attending a charter school are now attending an A-graded charter school. And for school districts, thank you. For school districts, as the governor highlighted, 28 districts earned an A compared to 22 last year. 31 earned a B compared to 26 last year. Duval County is one of those districts that improved from an A to a B, and it's the direct result of the leadership and the educators in this district. Right now, we're standing in one of those school success stories here at Ocean Way Elementary School. Ocean Way Elementary School earned a C last year, but I'm proud to say that Ocean Way is now an A school in the 2025 school year. Florida's leading the way, and our students are benefiting from the visionary leadership of Governor DeSantis. When other states kowtowed to the woke mob, this governor stood up for what was right. He has supported families every step of the way, whether it's tax cuts in the budget, driving workforce education programs, expanding educational options for students, or pushing for educational reform in our public education system. This governor has fought for it all. I fundamentally believe that his convictions are biblically driven, whether it's his vision of maintaining the innocence of our children or the old proverb, train them young in the way they should go so that even when they're old, they will not swerve from it. Time and time again, I am reminded all of the tools that we are providing for our students with at a young age are going to ensure that they will grow into successful adults. Thank you, Governor, for your commitment to our students.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Duval County School Board, I'd like to welcome our wonderful governor and our commissioner to Ocean Way Elementary as we celebrate this historic achievement. When I was elected in 2019, or 2018, my first year, 2019, we had 20 DF schools in our district. Fast forward to last year, 23, 24, we brought that number down to 12, which is great. This year, I am happy to announce that we have only 2 D schools in Duval County. And while 2 is too many, we have made significant progress in our academic outcomes for our kids in Duval County, and we expect that there will be 0 next year. I would like to recognize Governor DeSantis for leading the way by creating a robust school choice environment in the state of Florida. These choices create competition and make our educational institutions better. I was in Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago for a conference, and I specifically remember a school board member from another state up north who was very frustrated, and she was complaining about the lack of choice in her district. The students in her neighborhoods had to attend failing schools. They had to attend D and F schools. They had no other choice unless they took the money out and went to private school. And so I was at that time, I was just so grateful that I worked for a district, and I lived in a state where we had free education choices for our parents. 1 year ago, the school board hired unanimously Dr. Bernier to lead our district, to oversee the management and the day-to-day operations. His strategic leadership in placing principals in our schools have made all the difference in the world this year. Culture and climate are so important in a school building, and he has put the right leaders in the right places, and we have seen amazing outcomes because of those decisions. I also want to acknowledge and recommend the dynamic duo is what I call them, our Chief of Schools, Scott Snyder, and our Chief Academic Officer, Paula Renfro. Ms. Renfro has made a concerted effort to align resources to state benchmarks and to ensure students have appropriate tasks and assignments to ensure mastery of those benchmarks. I have enjoyed listening to Mr. Snyder present in our board meetings the instructional review process and how him and his team are in our classrooms every day to support our teachers, not to judge, not to critique, but to say, what do you need? What is it that you need to help our teachers understand the benchmarks and deliver the instruction? So I want to just say thank you for that, your leadership there, Mr. Snyder, and also the leadership playbook that your team has put together this last year. You know, you can't win the Super Bowl if you don't have a good game plan. And Mr. Snyder and his team has led the way in that game plan to improve student outcomes in Duval County. Finally, none of this would be possible without our teachers. They are the boots on the ground. They are the warriors in the classroom. They're in the trenches every day, loving, nurturing, caring, and delivering the instruction. You can have a great commander-in-chief and you can have great generals, but you can't win the war if you don't have the troops in the trenches doing the work. And our teachers have done that, and they have been fantastic for that. I also want to thank our parents for entrusting your children to us. Thank you so much, and we are going to continue to improve, and we're going to continue to get better. And so please, just continue to trust us. Number one, school safety. Number two, academic outcomes. And finally, as the chairman of the school board, not just the chairman of the school board, as a community member, as a parent, and as a grandparent, I am honored to stand up here with the historic news that for the first time in the history of Duval County, we have achieved the school grade of a district grade of an A. Congratulations to everyone.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today to celebrate this meaningful milestone for our school community. It is with great pride and gratitude that I share the exciting news that Ocean Way Elementary has officially moved from a letter grade C to an A. I want to begin by recognizing and thanking our incredible teachers here at Ocean Way Elementary. This success doesn't happen by chance. It is a result of their dedication, passion, and daily commitment to helping every student reach their full potential. They show up each day with purpose, meeting students where they are, and supporting them every step of the way. We know that each child is unique with their own strengths and challenges. More importantly, we see students as individuals, not just data points, but learners that are on their own path towards growth and success. By using targeted interventions through our consistent progress monitoring, we ensure that every student receives the support that they need to thrive. Our approach is intentional and responsive because real growth happens when we pay close attention to how students are doing and adapt our teaching to meet their needs. But this achievement is about more than academics. It reflects who we are. Ocean Way is not just a school, it's a community. It's a community of dedicated educators, hardworking students, and supportive families all working together to create a culture of care and progress and high expectations for our students. This A is more than just a letter grade. It is a reflection of heart and effort and the belief in Ocean Way Elementary. Thank you again to our teachers and staff, families, and students for making this moment possible. We accomplished this together, and we are just getting started.
Good job.
Hello, my name is Antoine Smith, and I'm going to be speaking for Ocean Way. So this school was very, the motivation for me was the green and grow parties. And once I seen I can get in the green for the green and grow parties, I wanted to do it all the time, get in the green so I could participate in all of them, because we get to get game trucks, popsicles, and stuff like that, instead of, being in the classroom. Also, my teachers were a big help for me with this, because they got a relationship with us, they respected our boundaries, and they made the lesson fun while teaching, not just sitting up there just telling us what to do. They made it fun so we can, and she engaged with us and we engaged with her. And also PM1 and PM2, it was like a practice for me for the state test. And once I seen I could get in the green on that, I always wanted to stay there.
Where are you going to school next?
And my next chapter is James Weldon Johnson.
All right. Well, good deal on that, and congratulations to Duval County School District for receiving the A grade. Congratulations to the folks here at the elementary school for their good marks. I think the progress monitoring reform was the right reform to do. I think it is providing dividends, but I think we all say, we still have more work to do, so let's get it done. Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions back there?
First off, I know it's not on the topic of education, but do you know when construction would begin on Camp Landing?
So the Division of Emergency Management closed the request for productions last week. I don't know if they've gone through and evaluated. I mean, all these projects are competitively bid, so they got to score the projects as they come in, or the vendors. So eventually, I think vendors will be selected, and then at that point, they would be able to do. Now, we're also going to see what the demand signal for this is. We did the Alligator Alcatraz and set that up last week. It was something that DHS, because people have been concerned, why aren't there more deportations? I know Cayenne, wants to see more, right? I mean, it's like you have Biden let in how many millions and millions, just Biden, and we had many millions before that. And so they're like, okay, and what DHS would tell us is, look, we don't have the manpower and the capacity to just be processing and have someone in like a bed overnight or whatever before they can be deported. So they asked us for help on that. Now, we're the only state in the country that requires our state and local law enforcement to participate with immigration enforcement. And that's part of the reason why on any given day, the number of arrests of illegal aliens throughout the country, 15 to 20% are just Florida alone. So we're punching way above our weight class on that. And so we said, okay, we'll help. And we have an ability with emergency management to move very quickly. I mean, you remember in Jacksonville when we had the Delta COVID. You remember COVID was 2020. Then they had these mRNA shots, and a lot of people took them. And people said, if you take it, COVID will be over. And yet you had a massive Delta wave in the summer of 21, even as all this stuff had been out. And so it was like, I mean, it was really going fast too. So, but we did have a treatment, these monoclonal antibodies. And so people were asking, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. So we set up clinics. We did the first one in Jacksonville. We ended up sending them all over the state. That saved thousands of lives just by doing that and doing it very quickly. Can you imagine if this were California, it would have taken them 6 months to be able to do any of that. So we move very quickly, and we take pride in that. And so when we had the opportunity to do this, we said, listen, we'll do it if it's going to be something that is actually going to bear dividends. We don't want to do it just to do it. And so DHS basically approved it. So everything we're doing will be reimbursable by the federal government. And so people say, well, Florida should be spending. First of all, when you spend money for this, you save money because you take stress off hospitals, schools, criminal justice, all that. So I don't even want to, enforcing the law ultimately will save money rather than just let lawlessness take over. But we're fronting it, but we are getting reimbursed in it. So we were able to stand it up in about a week. And so they did, I think the day or two after we opened it, when the president was there, they started bringing people. And I can tell you, the reports I've had, some of these people, these are really bad dudes. I mean, and I'm not one to say, like, if you're here illegally, you have committed an offense, and I would do no amnesty for anybody. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, only if you commit serious crime should you be deported. I think the law needs to be enforced. But the reality is some of the people DHS is sending there, they have committed criminal misconduct, and a lot of criminal misconduct that's probably not been even charged because they're just involved in some of this stuff. And so, we need to make sure that they're removed from the country. So DHS is going to be doing that. And so what we want to know is, okay, what's the demand signal for it? We're happy to stand it up, but we want to make sure that it's being used to effectuate the removal of illegal aliens from the country. That's why we're doing this. We're not doing it just for show. We're not doing it just for, it's can you do that? And if you do that, that will pay dividends for people here in the state of Florida. It'd be better for education, it'd be better for healthcare, it'd be better for all these things, better for housing, quite frankly, particularly rental housing. So, and Cayenne knows all this because she's been working on this with us for years. So I think we'll be able to move very quickly if there's the demand signal for that. Now, on the emergency management front, we do have people en route. Our water rescue teams are en route to help Texas. Just as a dad, when you see that, that's a real heartbreaker. And there's people are trying to politicize it. The reality is, I think there were alarms or there were notices that went out at 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. in the morning when people were sleeping. I mean, it's like there's not an easy fix to that. It was a very freak thing. And so rather than cast blame and try to politicize it, I think we should all pull together and do what we can to help the people of Texas because it's Mother Nature. When it's just, especially the water. I mean, we see that in Florida with storm surge and stuff. It can be really, really nasty. And this was a biblical flood. It was much more than what I think they anticipated. But nevertheless, we're in that. Texas has helped us when we've had different issues throughout the years, and we're happy to step up. And we've helped Texas in the past, too. I know we helped them in Harvey, some of the other things. But we are engaged in that with our resources. And if we can be helpful on that, then I think it'll be a good thing.
And Governor, to that point about those funds that are supposed to be reimbursed with camp planting, can you kind of explain how that's supposed to work?
How it would be on anything. So federal government reimburses us for stuff all the time. So for example, when we had Hurricane Milton, the Biden was president then, he signed 100% reimbursement for debris and for emergency protective measures. And so all the debris stuff would be done by local governments, and then they would submit, and then they would get reimbursed 100%. And the state could get reimbursed if we're putting in it as well. So it's no different than how it's been. That will be something that will be done, and I think that's probably the most efficient way to do it. Now, I think they do have more money now in the agency, so we'll see what they're doing. And part of the reason we've gotten so leaned in on this is because I just know that Biden really decimated ICE. He was telling people just come illegally like that. He was inviting people to come to this country. So they were not serious about interior enforcement. So I knew that, and I knew that there were major gaps, and I knew there's no way you were going to be able to fulfill the mission if the states and locals just sat on their hands. So we're happy to do this. I think it's important to finally get this issue right. At the same time, if DHS is able to handle all this themselves, then fine. We don't need any credit for anything. We just want to get the job done. But yes, it'll be reimbursed just like we would do on any time we get reimbursed from the federal government. And people throw around how much it's going to cost. I don't know that those numbers are accurate because I think it depends on how many people end up being processed through and how long this stuff goes. I mean, what we're doing is temporary. We're not going to make permanent sites on these locations. The place down in South Florida it's just massive airport that's there in the Everglades. There's really, security-wise, it's totally foolproof, but massive slabs of concrete out there. And so, they set up with temporary structures on that, and then they'll break them down and move when it's done. And same with Blanding. Blanding has more permanent structures that can be used for this, but the intent is not to commandeer that indefinitely. The intent is to help the mission, and if the feds have enough space, in 6 months or a year, then great. And then we won't necessarily need to be doing it. But there is a need now. And we're not just going to sit on our hands. And if every state did what Florida's doing, if every state just did a fraction of what Florida's doing, you would see, how much progress would be made very, very quickly. But, we're not used to kind of being out in front of the pack when it comes to a lot of these issues. Yes.
I just want to say what an honor it was to be in the press conference with you a few weeks ago for the property tax.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was good.
That's something I worked.
That was on the west side, right? We were over there. Yeah.
And also, Governor DeSantis, just thank you so much for being such a caring governor and caring about our state of Florida.
Oh, sure.
We live in a great country and just a great state.
So the property tax is, we're working very hard on this, and if I could just snap my fingers, I would do it. I got to work with the legislature, and we got to get it to where then the voters ultimately have to approve it the way Florida's Constitution's structured. So, but I don't think there's any way that the people that you've elected to the Florida legislature are going to be able to look at you in the eye after next session if they haven't put the property tax relief on the ballot for you to be able to adopt as voters. I think people want it. I think it's time. And so this is going to be a big thing for us as we go forward to be able to formulate something that is going to be compelling and that is also going to be workable. I mean, I look at some of these local governments, particularly like Southern Florida. I've seen how much their budgets have grown over the last 5 years, and when their populations have not grown by that much or even close to that much. And so, but why? Because they got a gusher of revenue because the property values have gone up. The housing market, it goes up and down, right? I mean, like when it goes up, it doesn't just stay going up indefinitely. There's corrections and all this stuff. And I think part of with the interest rates remaining high, I think it's frozen some of these sales in place. But I think if interest rates get cut and interest rates drop, I think you're going to see more inventory turnover. I think you'll see prices probably go down. Interesting, though, they never assess your property lower once they do it a certain amount, right? So if you end up seeing, your house has gone up 100% in the past 4 years or something, if it then goes down 25% over the next 2 years, and I'm not predicting this, but I'm just saying I know things are cyclical, they're not going to all of a sudden downgrade you by 25% and give you a break. No, you're kind of locked into that tax basis, and that's really tough for a lot of people. So, but they got this gusher of revenue, and so they did that. So I think that there's going to be ways. But one of the things we got in the budget, and I want to thank particularly Ben Albritton, the president of the Florida Senate, for supporting this, we have now legal authority to doge all local governments. And so we have done that on the universities, things that we have control over, and then we have allowed local governments to volunteer to be doged. But the problem is the ones that most need to be doged are not going to volunteer to be doged. And so we've had to kind of walk that. But now that we have the authority in there, you're going to see the ability of our guys as well as chief financial officer staff to go in there and really be able to demonstrate, I think, some of the inefficiencies. And so it'll just be the situation where, it's one thing to say you pay tax for law enforcement or this, but there's going to be a lot more bloat that people are going to be able to see. And I think they're going to be able to make some very, very good decisions for themselves and their families if given the opportunity. So the Doge authority is now in law. We're already working this week on doing that. And we have had some cooperation from a number of counties throughout the state of Florida, but not the ones that I think really need it more than ever. And so, the thing is like local government is it's an interesting beast, I can tell you. It's I watch some of this and I'm just like, man, I'm glad I don't have to deal with that. So it's so that's going to be coming, but I think that goes hat in hand with all this stuff. And then we'll also work on the state level, because when they tax your property, they're not sending it to us in Tallahassee. I announced last week, I think, that Florida, since I've been governor, we've more than tripled the state's rainy day fund. So we've now, after I signed the budget, our rainy day fund is maxed out. We're not allowed to put any more money in under our Constitution because we've reached the limit of how much rainy day fund you can have. And which, honestly, there should be a limit, because you don't want to just stockpile endless amounts of cash. You can, cut people's taxes or do that. But people are like, why do you have a rainy day fund if we're having property tax? Your property tax revenue doesn't go to the state for a rainy day or any of that other stuff. That is surpluses that have been generated largely by sales taxes, doc stamp taxes, other types of things that the state of Florida does, not income tax, of course, we don't have, and we just eliminated business rent tax. So that'll be gone, over the next 2 years. I think they're phasing it out, which is the elimination of a state tax, and yet we're still having strong revenues. So the property stuff is not going to fund our surplus, but we are going to be able to provide some support for localities, particularly in the initial years, and especially our rural counties. I'm fine doing that. I think that'll be easy to do. So this is all going to come to a head. We're going to work really, really hard on it, and we'll be probably going around the state doing some stuff to solicit more input from our citizens. But my view on all this, I've been saying it pretty much the last few months as we started debating taxes. I don't want to cut taxes for Canadian tourists. I want to cut property taxes for Florida residents. That's what I want to do. That's where we should focus it. And final thing I'll say is, I've been getting asked about this idea of this Elon Musk political party. And I just want to say, I think Elon Musk has been, one of the most innovative entrepreneurs, not just in our country's history, but probably in world history. And I think he's done a lot. I think he's got a lot more left in the tank, obviously. I appreciated his efforts in the 2024 election, and I've been a big supporter of the idea of the Doge, because the federal government's spending way too much money. We've adopted that in Florida, even though we have a budget surplus and are paying down debt, and we have the second lowest spending per capita of all 50 states, but yet we're still doing it in Florida because you always want to do better. But when Elon was in at Doge, there were grants that had been done that we rejected in Florida. We would call Elon, they would cancel it immediately. We sent over almost $1 billion to where they were able to recover. There were DEI, there was stuff we're not doing. And so there was a lot that was done that was very, very positive. And so I think I've been a big fan of what he's done. The problem is when you do another party, especially if you're running on some of the issues that he talks about, that would end up, if he funds Senate candidates and House candidates in competitive races, that would likely end up meaning the Democrats would win all the competitive Senate and House races. And so, look, I'm a Republican. I don't want to see that happen. I think if you want to, get involved and hold accountable, we do have a problem in the Republican Party with these D.C. congressmen. They always run saying there's out of control spending and they're going to spend less, and they never do it. And so there's a gap between the campaign rhetoric and then the performance. Elon was doing Doge, and a lot of Congress didn't want anything to do with actually adopting the Doge cuts, just like they haven't wanted to adopt the Trump executive orders on immigration and all these other things, which I think you have to adopt in law if you want them to have staying power. So I think there is a lot of frustration with the gap between the rhetoric in their district and the performance once they get into D.C. But the way you do that is expose that in a primary and show that there's another way forward. Honestly, if you're concerned about the debt, I wouldn't even worry about that, because I don't think just electing a few better people is going to change the trajectory. We need the incentives in Washington are going to lead to these outcomes, really regardless of the outcome of elections at this point. So you need to do a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And you can do that through the states. You can do it through Article 5. We've got 28 states that have approved this. There's another 4 or 5 that are on the docket. Once you hit 34, then you write an amendment, and then the states are able to ratify that. You need 3/4. If Elon wanted to weigh in on that and work on those state legislatures, I mean, he would have a monumental impact on doing this. And we also need term limits for members of Congress. And so you can do both of those things. But I think if you did that, all of a sudden, that moves the needle on both of those issues. Under Article 5 of the Constitution, you are going to see major, major positive changes, but you have to change the incentives and the structures up there, because we've seen it time and time again. You have the rhetoric, same results. You have the rhetoric, same results when it comes to debt. And so this is one way to do it, and it's within our grasp to do it. Florida's already certified both of those. Term limits has really gained a lot of steam over the last couple years. There was only 1 or 2 states that had done it like 5 or 6 years ago. Now you've got a lot more. Balanced budget amendment has been out there for a long time. A lot of people have wanted to do it. That's very close. And if you do those things, then I think you actually have a chance to really change Congress. But as it is now, even if somehow a third party could elect some people that were, so-called fiscal conservative, I don't think it would even move the needle, even if they got elected. And we know that they wouldn't get elected because it's really 1 or 2 parties. So you're either just taking votes away from one side or the other is really how it ends up doing. So, I'm a believer in trying to work this stuff out through the Republican process rather than do that. But I think even more than that, doing these amendments, which are within our grasp, it doesn't require Congress. You can do it through Article 5 and do it through the states. That would have a huge impact on the trajectory of the country. In the late 90s, they were 1 vote away in the U.S. Senate from passing a balanced budget amendment. It would have had to have been ratified by the states, but I think it would have been at the time. Now, we had a budget surplus federally at the time. Just imagine how different our fiscal trajectory would be right now had that balanced budget amendment passed 26, 27 years ago. I mean, we wouldn't be having some of these debates about all the mounting debt. And so we were very close to doing it. And I think because we were in pretty good fiscal shape, I think people just said it was better to not, the swing votes. Well, why tie hands? Things are going well. But had they done that, man, we would be in really good shape. So let's do a balanced budget amendment, tie the hands of the big spenders, term limit them so they can't ensconce themselves in office for decades like Nancy Pelosi. I don't know why. I mean, like, if she were to run a hedge fund with her stock trades, I mean, man, she would make a lot of money. So why don't we do that? That is achievable, and especially, I mean, if somebody as significant as Elon wants to get in the game on that, he will have I think, very consequential impact on that, and I think would be just the type that could bring this across the finish line. And wouldn't we want to see these guys have some limits on how much damage that they can do? So I think Washington needs to be overruled 100%. I just don't think a third party is going to do it, but I do think these amendments can make a big, big difference. Okay, thanks everyone. God bless.